What is up, guys? Frosty here today for another Frosty Features. Today we have the final member of our Astral team that has come to Marvel Strike Force. This is the second version of Emma Frost that we have gotten in the game. This is the X-Men version of Emma Frost. So if you haven't been this before, what this is a comic book background on the tunes that you use in Marvel Strike Force, and I am your guide through the pages past. So, with that, we're going to talk Emma Frost, X-Men, and we're going to get started. According to Scopely, what this is the blog post description that is supplied by Scopely so graciously to describe their new character. We're going to read this, and then we're going to rate it at the end of the feature. So, Emma Frost was once a manipulative member of the Hellfire Club who used her powerful telepathic abilities for personal gain and dominance. After a tragedy involving her students, she shifted her focus and joined the X-Men. Determined to protect and guide young mutants with her telepathy and ability to transform into organic diamond, Emma balances her sharp edge with a commitment to human survival. So, we're going to rate this at the end. Ultimately, Scopely's hope in releasing this character was to give us a hero version of Emma Frost. Is it captured in this blog post? That's up to you. Let me know in the comments below. Alright, Emma Frost, here's our girl. Name, Emma Grace Frost. First appearance, X-Men number 129, 1979. So one thing I want to throw out about Emma Frost, I didn't realize until going and putting in the research for this feature, I didn't realize she's as recent of a character. Not that 1979 was very recent, but I definitely assumed she was early 60s as far as continuity of the X-Men goes. So the fact that she's almost all the way in the 80s is actually kind of surprising to me. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Going into this, I knew a lot about Emma Frost, quite a bit actually, but the fact I had no idea she actually has been around so little time compared to many of her X-Men counterparts. Power/abilities, we've got a list. Telepathy, mind control, transference, diamond form, telekinesis. She has a little bit of everything. Sidekick bolts. She can put limiters into people's minds, getting rid of their powers. All sorts of crazy things. Ultimately, she is a high class telepath. Maybe top 10 in the Marvel Universe. Maybe. She's right there. They reference how strong she is, but there are quite a few very strong ones. So let's say top 20 telepaths in the Marvel Universe. 100%. She also has a secondary mutation. So mutants, when they as the mutant evolution has kind of went on, a lot of mutants develop a secondary mutation. Think of very noticeably and easy to tell is Beast. So if you look at the old X-Men comics and you see Beast has that quasi-human shape, he's just like a big dude with a bunch of kind of animal-like features, and then his secondary mutation is him getting the blue fur, etc. Emma Frost's secondary mutation is her diamond form, which essentially makes her invincible. But yes, so these are important things to consider, whatever. But also, as about just in case I didn't say it before, we are going off of the Earth 616, the main Marvel continuity line of Emma Frost. So, certain things of this is going to be very specific. Aliases, so other names that Emma Frost has gone by over the years, we've got the White Queen. So in the Hellfire Club, they go by the royal chess pieces other than the pawns, right? So you've got rooks, bishops, queens, kings, knights, etc. So in her situation, she has been the White Queen, the Black King, and the Black Queen. So she's hopped around. It's not uncommon for different characters within the Hellfire Club to take on these different roles as other characters die, leave, etc. So these are things to keep in mind. She has gone on under a few different names, and she also has taken over a lot of people's bodies over time because Emma Frost likes to go into comas. And when she goes into comas, she likes to possess people. So we see her possess like Storm, Iceman, and a few other people. And one of the cool things about Emma Frost that I want to point out is that she has this really cool thing when she does possess somebody. She can kind of like max out a mutant's abilities. So when Iceman got to his second mutation, it's because he was able to figure out his powers because Emma Frost possessed his body and more or less used his powers much more effectively than him. and this led to his secondary mutation where he could do the full ice form, which before that he couldn't. So it's kind of a neat thing. Affiliations: X-Men, Hellions, Hellfire Club, and Avengers. So Emma Frost has been associated with pretty much every version of every type of a mutant team, so I just kind of picked the highlights. X-Men, obviously really important for this context of Marvel Strike Force. So we're going to talk about what drove her to the X-Men, as it was slightly referenced in the blog post. The Hellions are a group. Essentially, she made a group of her own X-Men to rival the X-Men, or the New Mutants at the time. And this came in the form of the Hellions. Hellfire Club is the one that is brought up the most, especially in the community of Marvel Strike Force, and even as they're referencing it, the Hellfire Club being an elite society of mutants that try to run everything. There are, as I described the different roles, there's also kind of different teams alongside the Hellfire Club, being the white team and the black team, like on a chessboard. So that's important. And then she actually works with the Cosmic Avengers for a short period of time, and I don't know if she actually has her Avengers card, but she is definitely a type of Avengers reserve. She does get called in. One of the big things that's really important to note, and we've, once again, the Marvel Strike Force community has had many conversations about this. Emma Frost is not straight up a hero. She has, what's a good way to put it? She is very self-motivated and has a lot of selfish desires, and sort of runs with however that works. When she gets humbled in a situation which leads her to becoming more of a hero than a villain, but even as a hero, she definitely exists more as an anti-hero. Think more like maybe Loki, as he is now. So she's more hero than villain, but she's a hero with kind of negative tendencies, just because she wants what she wants and she's gonna get it. Background: a Bostonian mutant. So she was born to the Frost family out of Boston. She is one of 4 kids to her parents. And of course she is a mutant, so she, like most mutants, she manifested her powers as she became a teenager. Who died? Can't be a superhero, supervillain without somebody dying. And in Emma Frost's case, we have Troy Kilkelly, which is a romantic partner of hers that we will talk about a little bit later. But due to his death, she is driven to be to really use her mind powers. In his death, she hones her mind powers and decides to use them for selfish reasons, amassing a fortune, advancing in society, and pushing her way through a bunch of stuff on her own because of his death. So we'll talk about that. Yes. The power dynamic. One of the most interesting things about Emma Frost, her secondary mutation, unlike most mutants, her secondary mutation fully cancels out her main mutation. So when she is in her diamond form, I think it actually happens only one time, but where she actually is able to accomplish what I'm about to say. But when she is in her diamond form, she cannot use her telepathy powers. She can't mind read, etc. She actually loses her empathy to a point where she actually does not feel sorry for anyone. She loses all emotion, and she becomes this sort of, she's not lifeless, but she becomes a kind of like this almost soulless being that is just absolutely and utterly indestructible, right? So we see her serve. She's the only the Genosian massacre, when we talked about this a couple of times in Frosty Futures, maybe in Frosty Futures Sentinel. But when the Wild Sentinels were released on Genosha and they killed 16 million mutants, she is one of the only survivors. I mean, that's just because she went to diamond form and they couldn't kill her. So that's a very important thing to remember. But in this, she loses her telepathic abilities, which is super important to consider. Longevity and durability. So with this, her diamond form gives her the ability to not age. So when she's in diamond form, she does not age. This is replicated by a couple other characters as well. But with that, we have various versions of Emma Frost, because also she, like most mutants, she gets revived and stuff. She ends up in different bodies. So we have adult, then we'll have a teenager, then we'll have adult, whatever. But actually, her aging is greatly slowed down by her powers, and anytime she uses she uses her diamond form. And other mutants with similar powers have gone into the similar diamond form for decades just to prevent themselves from aging. So that is something important to keep in consideration. Relationships. So Winston and Hazel Frost, these are her parents. Winston's going to play a big role in her turning out the way she does. Adrian, Christian, and Cordelia Frost are her siblings. She is one of three girls, and then Christian is her older brother. So in age, it's Christian, Adrian, Emma, Cordelia. That's important to note. So she's the middle sister. Stepford Cuckoos, this is her genetic offspring. There's a point in which Emma Frost, and I don't talk about the harvesting of her eggs, but there's a point where, as I said, Emma Frost likes to go into comas. There's a point where she goes into a coma and somebody steals Emma Frost's eggs and so they genetically make a daughter who is Stepford Cuckoos, and it's a whole thing. Also, Troy Killikelly, who we brought up earlier, Cyclops, Ian Kendall, and many others are romantic partners of Emma Frost. Emma Frost has, obviously with the way that she's dressed and presented, in most versions of Emma Frost, she has a lot of sexual overtones. So there's a lot of relationships and manipulating people with those relationships. So these are just some of the ones to kind of that are notable, especially through what we're going to talk about today. Not really Cyclops. It's always just fun to point out when Cyclops is kind of a jerk. In dating Emma Frost, he's a jerk. Cyclops is always a jerk. You can just kind of write that down. Origin. So, as I stated before, Emma Frost is born into the Frost family in Boston. She's the middle daughter. She is originally born with brown hair. So ultimately what this is Winston Frost, her father, is a very strong, he's a businessman, and he's very specific on how he wants his family to go, how he wants how he wants his children to act, how they're going to come out, whatever. And as in this moderately oppressive household, Emma Frost is sort of lost in the mix in a lot of it, and she really only relates to and confides in her brother Christian. With this, as time goes on, she becomes a teenager, and in becoming a teenager, her mutant powers start to manifest. So these telepathic abilities do so within Emma as migraines at first, and then she starts to hear voices, and then in hearing voices, she slowly starts to realize they're the voices of the people around her, and she recognizes that she has these telepathic abilities. So growing up, Emma Frost she's not very good in school, right? So she has trouble. She wants to be a teacher, and her father is super against this idea. And even in wanting to be a teacher, she does not do very well in school, right? So with that, as she is failing, etc., she has a teacher. She's like, my teacher's pretty hot. Her teacher being Ian Kendall. And over time, what happens is, as she starts to realize, she thinks she's going crazy. She thinks she's sick. She has these migraines, etc. And what ended up happening is that she realizes, like I said, it's the people around her thoughts that she's hearing. So as she's taking tests, she realizes that she can kind of dive into what each of these people are saying in their brain, get all the answers to the test, and all of a sudden her grades skyrocket, and she becomes super high-end student, etc. And immediately the school's like, there's no way after years you were able to turn it around like that. You must be cheating. So they give her like re-exams and all this stuff. But she's able to then tap into whoever is giving the exam's mind and read what the answers are and absolutely school them. And so with that, she gets older, and she decides that she's going to make this big push to kind of revitalize her life. So she talks to her brother, and her brother's like, let's give you a makeover. And with that, that informs something a little bit later about her brother, but her brother's like, let's just give you a makeover and you can be amazing. And so they give so actually, with all the migraines, reading the telepath stuff, this is an important note that doesn't actually affect the story a whole bunch, but this is how Charles Xavier finds or gets Emma Frost on his radar. But unlike most mutants that you hear Charles Xavier or Magneto or whoever going to, Charles Xavier approaches Emma and her father with Mara McTaggart and they're like, hey, come to the Xavier School. This is going to be great. And both of them are like, absolutely not. Neither of them were interested. They're like, we're not going to do this. Winston was like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. She has a way that she's supposed to be, right? So that's in the middle of all of that. So she gets a makeover. She goes to the school dance, introduces herself as a new person, and she's like, check me out, everybody. I'm hot and cool. And then everybody's like, wow, you're hot and cool. Good job. Good for you. And her dad's starting to pick up on this drift. And when she goes to this dance, Ian Kendall which is her teacher, is supposed to be chaperoning it, and it kind of creates this kind of dynamic of, oh, actually, she's kind of hot. Look at that. And she can read that mind, so she knows that it's going on. And ultimately, her father is wicked smart, and her family is very much like this big self-saboteur thing. They're trying. Everybody wants to be the best, right? So the older sister is thought to be inheriting this fortune, and so she's always trying to blackmail people. And Emma Frost, there's a point where Emma is confiding to Christian, her older brother, and she's like, "Yo, I think I like my teacher. That's a thing." And Adrian was like, oh, okay. The older sister was like, all right, I got that on cassette tape or whatever we're using at this point. I'll show this to Daddy. And Daddy's like, I don't like that this is a thing, even though the teacher has made zero advances on the situation whatsoever. And so he's like, I got a plan. So he is driving Emma in a car one day, and the car breaks down. He's like, hey, I'm gonna go for help. You just stay here and wait. It'll be fine. And then lo and behold, guess what? Ian Kendall comes driving by, and he gets out of the car, and he's like, oh, you're broken down? Here, I'll give you a ride. And so Emma gets in the car. Emma picks up that the teacher's like, oh yeah, smart. She's beautiful. This is going to work out. This is great. And Emma's like, I'm going for it, bro. Like, hey, he's hot. I'm hot. Let's do this thing. And so she reaches in and goes for a kiss, and he pushes her away. But this is still enough for Winston to be like, all right, now you're screwed, dude. And so Emma returns to school to find that her teacher has been removed from his position, and her father has put in to have him removed due to this inappropriate relationship with his daughter, which highly agitates Emma. But Emma actually still lives under his house for quite a while after that, until the day where Winston is set to pick his successor. So amidst all of this, Emma's older brother, right? He comes out as homosexual to the family, and he's got a boyfriend and such. And Winston is not a fan of this. He hates. So this is important for the inheritance, right? So Winston, it's assumed that Christian is going to get the inheritance, and then Winston is trying to put Christian on Winston's preferred path. Right? So Winston has Christian's Cuban boyfriend deported, and Kristen doesn't handle this well, and he moves to abusing substances and stuff, and then he even makes attempts on his own life, and he ends up getting put in a psychiatric ward by Winston. So Christian's kind of out of the picture, so it's automatically assumed that Adrian is going to take over the Frost fortune. And when he comes out, and he's like, all right, Emma's gonna get the fortune. Bam! Adrian's a big backstabber, and Emma actually has what it takes to run this family. And Emma's like, nah, bro, I'm out of here. So she takes off, she runs away, and she gets jobs and such as, essentially working fast food and all these things. And eventually she runs into Troy Kilkelly, who, she runs into, Troy Kilkelly and at a restaurant because she's at a restaurant and she doesn't have the money to pay for the restaurant. It's too fancy. So what she tries to do is she hands a piece of paper to the waiter, and she's like, hey waiter, that's $100. That's all the money that you need plus tip. Thank you so much. And that worked. Then the waiter's like, thank you so much, because she made it into an illusion. She was like, hey, it's money. And the guy's like, yeah, this is money. But a manager associated with the conversation and Emma wasn't thinking about sees this and is like, absolutely not, girl, in the kitchen. So she's back there washing dishes washing dishes, not watching them. She's washing dishes where she meets Troy Kilkelly, and they kind of start a friendly / romantic relationship. And they amass a little bit of money, and Troy's like, let's go to the casino, and we're gonna. And so with Emma's mind reading ability. She gets up in this casino and she's like, I'm gonna poker plus mind reading, no problem. So she starts winning all the money back, which gets the attention, because what we find out is Troy has some debts he needs to pay to a loan shark that's named Lucian. So they're trying to get the money from the casino. I know this is kind of all over. Watching ditches, yeah, I know. Sorry, that was the thing in chat. So anyway, they're trying to pay off this loan shark by winning all this money. So they get all this money and they go to pay it off. And they give the money to the loan shark Lucian. And Lucian's like, yeah, that's great. Thanks for giving me all that. Where's the interest? There's $5,000 interest. What are we doing here? You're short. You're short on the money. And they're like, oh, we'll get you more money. He's like, no, you don't have time. So they come up with this plan. They're like, wait. Emma's dad is super rich. We're going to blackmail him. We're going to blackmail him to get his daughter back. And this is going to be great. So they make a video about Emma being kidnapped, and they're like, hey, we're going to kill her if you don't give us this money. And Winston gets back and he's like, yeah, about that. I don't care about her and she's not part of my family, so kill her. And with that, so that comes out and it's like, okay, well, great. We're just going to kill you both because we don't have the money. And with that, Troy jumps in and he's like, all right, Lucian, I'll best you in hand-to-hand fisticuffs. No problemo. And then Lucian kills Troy, because that's how that works. So Lucian kills Troy and he goes to kill Emma, and Emma is able to kind of stun her way out of the situation, telepathically get out of the situation. So she dyes her hair blonde, makes a new name for herself, and starts using her powers, refining them as well, and using that to rise through society on her own, which is how we get Emma Frost as Emma Frost, right? So this is see, even in the origins, she's messing in this sort of seedy underbelly, so she kind of rides that wave all the way to the Hellfire Club and things like that. So with that, what pushed her to joining the X-Men? Well, I'm glad you asked. That was her attempt at having her own X-Men team, her own school with the Hellions. So with the Hellions, what we see here, and this isn't actually from the Hellion story, this is sort of an after situation, but what happens is, after associating with people like Magneto and Charles Xavier, etc., Emma decides, and once again, we said it with Origin, she wanted to be a teacher. She decides that she can make a school for mutants that will be better than Charles Xavier's school. So she starts what she calls the Massachusetts Academy, and in this situation, she creates her own version of the X-Men, which are the Hellions. So for a while, and so ultimately the X-Men are like, they stand for good whatever, Magneto, Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, it's in the name. With the Hellions, it kind of serves, and also, in lieu of the X-Men, we also have the New Mutants, that the Hellions kind of go back and forth in associating with the X-Men and New Mutants quite a bit, but the Hellions really serve as rivals to the New Mutants more so than the X-Men. But what we got here is we got the Massachusetts Academy, and there's a contentious rivalry. So sometimes they hate each other and they're really going for each other, or they're competing against each other, or they're having a romantic relationship with each other. There's a lot of intermingling between the X-Men, namely the New Mutants and the Hellions, right? So she creates this. And this is all post her being in the Hellfire Club, things like that. And that was another thing in the blog post. It points out that she used to be in the Hellfire Club. She kind of always is in the Hellfire Club. She leaves, comes back, leaves, comes back, leaves, comes back, changes things, but most notably White Queen, etc. Ultimately, her ties with the Hellfire Club are going to factor in heavily due to the fact that at one point, after some successful missions, whatever, Emma's like, I'm going to put on this party, and we'll have the X-Men here, we'll have the Hellions, and we'll just have a nice little party, and it's going to be great. Outside of this, what we're seeing, so the Hellfire Club being a group of mutants that really like to mess with what's going on. Okay. So there's a contest appears out of nowhere for villains, and we have a group of villains known as the Upstarts that the contest goes to them, and between them it's like, hey, we'll have a competition. Whoever can kill the most high level mutants wins, right? The most influential mutants wins. So then we have a guy, we have a dude in the Upstarts called Trevor Fitzroy. Trevor Fitzroy is an extremely powerful time traveler. and he also controls kind of this slew of Sentinels. So what he does is he's like, well, influential mutants, obviously the Hellfire Club are all influential, so we're going to go for Donald Pierce, whom we've talked about a few times on Frosty Features. We're going to go for Donald Pierce, we're going to kill him, there's nobody higher than, he is the White King, right? So we are going to take out, Donald Pierce. So they attack the Hellfire Club, specifically looking for, so it's Trevor and his Sentinels, and Donald starts freaking out, so he goes to Gateway, which is another mutant. Gateway does what you think he does, and he's like, please, teleport me somewhere safe, wherever Emma Frost is, she can protect me. So Donald Pierce gets teleported to this party that Emma Frost is throwing that has the Hellions and X-Men, and lo and behold, Trevor appears with his Sentinels, and he kills Donald Pierce, and a big fight ensues, and blood is being shed, and things aren't going super well. And in the midst of this skirmish, almost all of the Hellions are killed. Absolutely murdered in front of the X-Men, in front of Emma Frost, etc. And the X-Men are still there, whatever. The tides are turned on Trevor. He is defeated. The Sentinels are defeated, and at the end, all of the Hellions are gone, right? So this wasn't in a competition. This wasn't in a whatever amongst the Hellions and the X-Men or New Mutants or Charles Xavier School and Massachusetts Academy. It just happened to be a situation where everything was friendly, everything was going well. They were trying to celebrate something, and then boom, all the Hellions are more or less dead. In this process, Emma is put into a coma. So when I talked about earlier about her possessing people, in this version of the coma is when she takes over Iceman's body. But essentially what happens is once we realize that it is Emma inside Iceman's body, she comes to the knowledge that the Hellions have perished. They have all been slaughtered, and it sinks in on her, and it makes everything worse. But the weight of the Hellions dying sits on her super hard. So when she comes back to being Emma Frost in Emma Frost's body, she recognizes, due to the weight of these things, she's like, if they would have been at the Xavier School, they would have been better off. They might even be alive. Like, they're dead because of me, right? And you know, in a way they are, because they were zoned in on, hey, I'm going to Emma Frost, right? So the Hellions, so that pushes her to try to right her past sins and leads her to joining the X-Men officially. That's how it goes there. So that Hellion story is really crazy. Definitely recommend reading it. Emma Frost has a lot of good arcs. So I highly recommend just checking anything out with her. Especially some of the new stuff on Krakoa. She's one of the main leaders there. Definitely check it out. She's a super interesting character and has a lot going on with her. So definitely 100% check it out. So next up on Marvel Strike Force, they don't care about power levels, but here at Frosty Features, we do know the way that this works. If you are a multiversal threat, that means you can end all realities, not just your reality, but all the realities at once, toppling the multiverse at will. Universal means that you are a threat to your universe, maybe then can hop over to another reality or universe and end that one. Cosmic means you're a threat on a planetary scale, being able to destroy things like planetary bodies all the way up to solar systems or galaxies with enough time and effort. Nuclear means you have power equivalent to that of a nuclear bomb, leveling things like small cities all the way up to that planetary body we talked about in the cosmic section. Super soldier means that you are beyond all human capabilities in every way, shape, and form. Superhuman speed, strength, reflexes, etc. Being able to level things like a city block or up to all the way up to a city block or down to just being able to bust through a brick wall, right? City means that you have powers equivalent to that of the peak tier human being. We're thinking Olympic athletes here. So in Marvel, we have a lot of our ninjas, our CIA agents, mercenaries, etc. living in this area. And then there's Greg. Greg is the undead Asgardian spawned by Hela and Marvel Strike Force, and without anybody to back him up, Greg isn't worth anything, right? So, due to undead Asgardian physiology and for the sake of argument, because I like to make it, we equate Greg to that of a regular human being. So, theoretically, if I'm out feeding ducks at a pond, and Greg comes along, and he's like, that's my ducks that you're he's Greg, so he's like, and I, being able to speak Gregish Asgardian, of course, it's a sect of Asgardian, it's fine, you don't know. he's like, those are my ducks. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm the one feeding these ducks today. And I even see, he's over there with rice and stuff, which aren't good for the ducks. And I'm like, dude, those are going to hurt the ducks. And he's like, no, they're not going to hurt the ducks. And then this gets heated to a situation where Greg tries to push me in the pond. And then I hip toss him, because I watch MMA, into the pond and jump on him and start to ground and pound him underwater, right? Only for a little bit of time, though, because I'm just a human, right? But due to these things and the fact that Frosty Aussie, as we sit here, is supposedly a regular human being, we are saying that Greg is equal to that of just any other regular human you might see on the street. So, in the case of Emma Frost, we have an extraordinarily powerful telepath. We also have a character that is not only can do illusions, but also has shown aspects of being able to use things like telekinesis. And then, of course, she has her super mega durable diamond form. So, keeping these things in mind, due to how strong of a telepath she is, we equate her to being at a nuclear level. She has shown on multiple occasions, very similar to Charles Xavier, being able to walk through crowds of people and stunning them all at once, right? Being able to pushing them out of the way, silence groups of people at one time. She is that powerful. So, debatably, even on the cosmic level, the only reason why I leave her at nuclear is because she has that nuclear effect where she could theoretically stop a whole town kind of at will, but being able to take out something like on a planetary scale, unless it was an extremely small planet, I don't see it happening. But there's a lot of potential there. There's a point where she hosts the Phoenix Force, which would put her at universal level, but that, of course, is sort of an outlier. We're just talking about base level Emma, right? So, nuclear is what we say there, and according to Scopely, the only thing I don't care for that they worded here is the used to be a part of the Hellfire Club. It's not wrong, but she kind of goes back and forth. And since Marvel Strike Force is sort of this enduring thing, it's better to say she has association with the Hellfire Club. That's mincing words, though. And ultimately, this isn't that bad. I don't feel like it's very descriptive, and it is very general, and it's probably because they already have Emmett in the game. So I say nice try. It's not a great blog post description, but it's not the worst one. It's not that bad. But with that, people, that was Frosty Features Emma Frost X-Men. I hope that you all enjoyed this. Please let me know in the comments your favorite Emma Frost moments, or if I got anything wrong. Either way is cool. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything but a couple of clicks. As a reminder, I stream Sundays, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time at this link above, where we do Frosty Features live. I hope that you all had a good time. I hope that you all have a fantastic, fantastic week. And most importantly, y'all, stay cool.